From Chicago, welcome to 3Degrees Discussions. I'm your host, Mike Vasquez. This is a podcast devoted to the stories behind the innovators, entrepreneurs, and leaders in the 3D printing industry.
The system which I was lucky to use as a young engineer was an EOS system, was an M270. So I got in contact with one system, and this was the first one from EOS, and it worked well. So that's why I got connected, and I wanted to see more systems, more business cases, and to see the world, because traveling is part of my life. As I mentioned, I always kind of learned how to integrate and in different cultures. So it's something what I really like to do.
That was Gregor Reischle. After extensive experience in the AM industry, Gregor recently started his own consulting company called AM Entrepreneur. Gregor started his career in the manufacturing space in the dental industry. He spent a number of years at EOS working as an application engineer and an AM consultant. From there, he moved on to TUV SUD to be the global head of industrial additive manufacturing. Before we get started, head over to www.3degreescompany.com and subscribe to the podcast. Remember, you can listen to the show anywhere you download your podcasts, including Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and Stitcher. All right. Thank you so much for joining the episode today. I'm excited for the conversation. I think we met a few years ago at FormNext, but it's been a while since we caught up. And like I do with all my guests, I like to provide some context for kind of where people are from, kind of what kind of young Gregor was like, and kind of let's start from there, and we'll get into a lot of the good work you're doing in the additive space. So kind of where you're from, where you grew up, kind of what got you down the path of manufacturing.
So today I'm 44 years old, actually turning tomorrow 44 years old.
Oh, well, happy early birthday.
So perfect timing. And I just in process to found my own startup and owning my own company since 4 months. I'm an additive since over 12 years, in Germany since 30 years, and was born in Poland in 78, and emigrated to Germany with 11 years old. So I made all this journey of integration in a new cultural environment. Learn language, learn how to, survive in Germany. I got full my education actually in Germany from craftsmanship. I am a dental technician by education. So then I did this job till 25. So I did with my hands crowns and bridges and such devices which belongs in the human mouth.
So you were making them, like kind of fabricating them. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and that's actually brought me then on a later stage to the use of additive manufacturing and 3D printing. But it was this interconnection of different materials and technologies in one work, in one device. So that's very interesting because you connect metal, plastics, and ceramics. So in general, and then I studied diploma engineering in Osnabrück in Germany. And after the study, I got the first metal machine in my hands, so additive manufacturing system. And we started to print crowns and bridges, which is today I think the most successful business case for additive manufacturing globally, where millions of crowns and bridges are printed on monthly basis. Yeah, there are so many systems installed. And therefore, I just learned that it flies and it works if you quality assure the processes and make them reproducible. So just directly after my study with my first job in additive, and then I continued with this mindset with EOS for 7 years, traveled around the globe and visited the biggest manufacturers and labs in China, India, USA, wherever manufacturing happened at that time and large scale in dental, I visited those customers. And I saw this cultural differences in using AM systems as well, and mindsets, and how to set up production lines. So this was for 7 years great to experience. And then I started the consulting unit at EOS, Additive Minds. I was one of the first consultants for EOS. And we incubated this consulting mindset in the industry that it's not just about technical requirements and R&D. It's as well to understand how to implement the processes as a consultant. And this lead me to develop a quality assurance system for the industry. And this quality assurance system, I was consulting for EOS. At that time, it's called AMQ, Additive Manufacturing Quality. And then I changed to TUV, which is a certification body, because certifying quality from a machine manufacturer point of view is kind of a not neutral, or not, let's say, independent. So that's why it makes sense to do it as a third independent party. And so I changed to TUV SUD and developed that for the first TIC company, testing inspection certification. And there we did that as well on a global basis. I did that for 4 years, and right now I finally ended up to open my own company and continue the journey of AM implementation. So for me in life is as well about making it happen with the technology and contribute to industrialization and great business models and sustainability.
Awesome. So I got a ton of questions, but I'm gonna start early on. So can you talk more about kind of the dental piece? So for those who may not be familiar, I mean, most people have been to a dentist and kind of understand the concept of crowns and bridges, but what was the pre 3D printing state of how these things were made, and what was what problem did 3D printing solve from kind of your experience, both having to make these and then kind of seeing all the additive go into it?
Yeah. So the business, I think it's for sure over 1,000 years old. So people are getting artificial teeth since 100 years and more. And educational wise, it's very clear program how to copy the nature. So that you copy actually as a dental technician the teeth and use plastics, ceramics, or metals for it. It's a small device, very small, and it's always custom made. So small and custom made makes already a kind of a potential use for 3D printing. But if it's educated for so many years that you do it by your hand and you box, maybe I show a part in the camera. So you see here one platform which is manufactured with crowns and bridges, and this platform is full of single devices. These are so-called crowns. So this device was made by hand, one for roughly half an hour till 1 hour. And right now we can print it for less than €3 or $3. Yeah. So this craftsmanship is disrupted by technology. And that's an interesting piece, because we and it's even better in quality. So the 3D printed parts are fitting better, are more reproducible, and are cheaper. So that's why it happened.
Yeah. And then the other piece of it too is I've had the chance to go in and to see one of the these factories that are doing a lot of things by hand to make aligners and using some 3D printing. But I think what I was overwhelmed by is the fact that, yes, 3D printing by its nature is good at small customized things. The machine is good at doing that. You don't need the tooling, but the data and the paper trail and the quality to try and map all of that, because you've got hundreds of patients, the geometries are all unique. There's different files coming in, there's different builds. So that was thinking about that at the scale of dental it's a lot to take in terms of like, how do you take this machine that's very good at cutting down labor time and cutting down cost, but there's all these other pieces that you just need to make sure you keep a track of along the way.
For sure, yes. So the industry always tries to sell the benefit, right? So, or you can print it straight away, and it's €3 costs. Yeah. So I was just talking about half an hour human labor for this part of the crown. Of course, there's still a human labor remaining, but you can't get half an hour human labor for €3 or $3. That's difficult. Maybe in certain parts of the world it still works, for sure. But in general, in the industrialized countries, it doesn't work anymore. So here is the disruption. And even if the entire product is not printed, yes, for sure it's not, because there's still a human interaction to cut off the parts, preparing the surface, etc., etc. The part where half an hour is disrupted by technology still counts and is valid, and you can scale it and use it.
Sure. And so are there additional, I mean, certainly there are medical device guidelines from a manufacturing perspective when you start to switch over to these types of technologies, but you mentioned that there was a performance gain by using 3D printing. So was that a consistency thing, a fit and form benefit? How did that manifest itself?
I think that the complexity of the original process or handcrafted process was just a little bit too much. So every human to make reproducible results, educational wise, was so much effort, and it was so much easier to do that with 3D printing because it's data driven. So it's scanner settings, which plus minus resolution of the scanner. Then there's a design settings of plus minus of a design features of the crown. And that's everything is digitally monitorable. So you can track how the scanner worked, you can track how the design was done, and how the printing process was done. And everything is data-based. Of course, there's still in between some possibility that the digital process chain can go wrong, caused by human, or caused by too low, let's say, quality monitoring efforts. But the complexity of the original process chain, conventional crown design, is much more higher, because you need to wax, you need to make the wall thickness right, you need to do a lost cast model, then you cast. The casting machine works like this because it's usually manual process or partly manual. Then you need to deform. You need to invest the wax model. So and then you need to mill it and grind it and get it to the right wall thickness. The right wall thickness made by an wax and cast is difficult to detect as well. You can measure a cut file, an STL file, in seconds. Such a ready finished crown, you need to tactile measure. So you need to measure it physically. So there are so much failure potentials, and that's why it was disrupted. And as well, the size of the part, it's of course small. So it's the printing costs and material costs are low. So this came additionally as a major benefit. If this would not be the case, if the material amount per crown would be higher, because we do crowns for animals or bigger parts, doesn't fly anymore. It's the core reason were really the costs. The side benefits is the reproducible quality, which was accepted.
Right on. And so switching gears a little bit, I'm always curious of people's kind of transitions into 3D printing as companies. So like, I always joke with people around the industry that like there's not really a brand name that you could ask my grandma, like, have you ever heard of EOS, right? Like it's the biggest company in the industry, but like nobody knows about it, right? It's one of these like manufacturing kind of generic names. So how did you get to EOS? Like what was the first time that you heard about it? Like what was I mean, given it's a German company, was like was there more marketing about it? Like what was the story behind that?
So the system which I was lucky to use as a young engineer was an EOS system, was an M270. So I got in contact with one system, and this was the first one from EOS, and it worked well. So that's why I got connected, and I wanted to see more systems, more business cases, and to see the world, because traveling is part of my life. As I mentioned, I always kind of learned how to integrate and in different cultures. So it's something what I really like to do, and that's why I used the chance to switch from this SME manufacturer to EOS to travel around the globe and do that on a global scale.
So what were some of your observations? You mentioned you'd kind of gone to facilities in India and China.
Yeah.
I've not had the chance to do that. I've been around Europe and North America, and but kind of what are some of the key takeaways that you've seen over your career?
So I think the understanding of quality and safety is a cultural individual thing, and how you perform quality and safety measures. So educational wise, Germany is kind of focusing those topics always. Internationally wise, it's really depends on the region and of course the company, how those are lived. So if you try to implement a reproducible quality of a printer where the factor human is still a big portion of the process, it depends of course of this fact. So how well is the staff already ready to implement reproducible steps? And because it's all about kind of reproducible steps. Unfortunately, industrialization with human is always making the human doing the same task reproducibly, which is not in our nature, because we are, I think, creatively born, but in the additive manufacturing process, we need to. Otherwise, we don't compensate and don't make sure that the production process is reproducible. So, and this is all about education. So are we understanding general quality assurance measures as a human from maybe another industries? This is an old topic, it's not new, but the basis needs to be there. So for example, China is quite easy. So if you have a commitment from the manufacturer to make it happen, and a team of people, you just need to guide. In China, you need just to guide and say, okay, let's do that like that and that, and the team will follow and they will do that. But you need to be very precise on what they need to do, and then they will do. You can bet for that. In other countries, there might be, if they are single individuals like Europe, where they're not used to quality assurance, they will sometimes maybe not follow quality assurance guidelines because they think, oh, I can do better, or if they are individual kind of persons which doesn't want to standardize processes because they want to stay, let's say, single competent person in the production line, then this is as well kind of cultural thing or strategic thing, of a production line. So sometimes we have these senior experts in production lines, which doesn't want that their work is kind of transparent and reproducible. So because they are the single head of a production line. This is wonderful about China. You this works quite well. So if you say, okay, this needs to be documented, so people do, but you need to invest much more time in educating and saying exactly what you need. India was different. So especially the safety thing was interesting. So it's a very simple example. So for example, wearing the safety shoes, all the people in the factory are barefeet. Yeah. And then you have the safety recommendation. You need to wear safety shoes and things. And the culture is you are barefeet in the factory. So then things kind of doesn't match, because everybody is barefeet, and then you need to implement kind of this crazy German rule. You need to wear safety shoes. This was far away from reality. Yeah? But things are changing, and as well, always, I believe that this is what technology brings as well, kind of an intercultural exchange. So we could talk about it. And yes, we manage that basic safety rules are followed. So that's wonderful about traveling with technology and educating different cultures, because you have one point to discuss with us, how to make it happen reproducible and safe. US is I think fast and curious. Yeah, I see. You implement fast, and some solutions are kind of not there yet, but you're already at the market. And this is what I love about US. So it's there's fast progress, and there's an idea, and there's execution. So that's much more kind of forward to, let's just try it, rather than in Germany we like to plan a lot and define the proper plan, which is as well on one hand side good. On the other hand, if your time to market is different, yeah, it's yeah. So this in the US, I visited 2 big companies, and both kind of have their own inventions and ways how they optimize the technology to make it better and improve it to be faster or deliver better performance, which was maybe not conform with the standard, but it helped to make their market happy, or to reach new customers, or lower down the costs.
And you mentioned kind of the Additive Minds piece as well. I mean, I started my kind of consulting company about 10 years ago now, mainly helping kind of along some of these lines, where it's not just the machine that, like, you buy a machine and you're ready to go. There's all these nuances, whether it's quality or materials, training, things like that come up. So what were the observations kind of in those early days of Additive Minds and EOS to from the market that you might need something like that?
I think first of all, for myself, was to learn what consulting means, because as an engineer, you are focusing on trainings and less on consultancy. And then to develop the consulting programs or consultative trainings, let's say so, yeah, which give the right impulses to the user's mind to bring him to the next level of thinking and enriching his ideas. And this was quite interesting to think, of course, customer centricity and based with aim potential. So really combine the potential of the technology, which everybody quite fast feels if they start to work with additive, because there are so many great examples of what you can do with additive, but transferring those into consultative models was really fun and kind of innovative, because nobody did it before. So we were free to create and think consultatively. Therefore, of course, experienced consultants are important because they did it already for other industries. And so we could benefit from the leaders which were hired as well for the consulting unit, because they did it already a couple of times in other industries. So we could benefit from their know-how. And we as technology experts, application engineers, could transform ourselves to be consultants. So fantastic time, of course, completely different of working style, but enriching personally, and of course value for broad value for the industry, I believe.
So let's talk about that next transition then. So out of EOS, you kind of transitioned outside the OEM world into more a broader kind of industry standardization kind of role. Yeah. So what was the draw there, and how did that evolve?
So mentioning and doing my introductions at the AMQ Additive Manufacturing Quality Program, which I consulted, I qualified 10 companies globally for EOS. And then I recognize, okay, it's kind of not neutral enough, because companies are using as well another technologies. It's not just powder bed fusion. So it's sometimes a mixture. And that's why, and parallel, I started my MBA education at TUM in Munich. So, and I recognize, there's a business design journey about everything what we generate newly. And I would like to try it from scratch. And there was this big shout in the industry: we need certification. We need certification just that our technology becomes on the same level as milling or casting or established other technologies through certification. So this was kind of this message at that time. And I thought, oh, that's perfect, because there's a pain, actively addressed pain. So I can solve it via a new company, TUV SUD. And the company was looking for, and then so I designed the business case for the company. I was hired, I designed a business case. Quite fast, I could convince internal stakeholders to develop the unit properly. So we hired people in Germany, in Japan, in Singapore to do it on a global scale. And I defined our strategic roadmap, qualifying materials, hardware, software, processes, and investing into next gen AM, so combination with other advanced manufacturing technologies. And this is basically what we did for 4 years. Some of the intentions were a little bit too early for the market. Some of them went very well. So today, TUV SUD qualifies production lines in additive manufacturing. And in Germany, we have around 12 certified manufacturers, which are certified according to the standard which I started at EOS and then continue to write at TUV SUD with DIN, ISO, ASTM. These are standardization organizations, and they release standards. So we have independent standards which everybody can use as a testing, inspection, certification house, or every auditor can use to audit other companies if they work regarding state-of-the-art quality assurance.
So, two questions on that. So, what's the standards called? And so the idea, and if you take this standard, and the TUV SUD would go in, audit a facility to that standard, and then, hey, they pass your third-party testing organization, you can offer a certificate to that specific standard. Is that how it works?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And this is how certification works. You need to have an independent standard, which you can put on a certification mark. And then, but that five years ago, as I started, there was no standard, which was useful. So I created this ISO ASTM 52920, which is a standard for industrial additive manufacturing production sites. And on parallel, we did a German one because it was quicker at that time. And the ISO ASTM time at the global standard is now now in the final stage. So I'm still finalizing it, but it's released already, and it can be purchased as a draft, but will be released in a few weeks as a final version.
Awesome! Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. And the beauty of it helps really the industry to at least cover a huge portion of the human interaction with the technology as standardized. So there's cultural influences of interpretation. How do I need to set up a production line are covered in the standard. So, and this comes back actually to my experience talking to Chinese, Indian, European, and US different people and great minds interpretation. Now we can cover this portion for reproducible production lines in a standard, and that's the ISO STM 52920.
How detailed does the standard get? So like, let's take medical manufacturing using metal powder, just for instance. So would it say you need to have a standard operating procedure for material blending, material handling, or does it get into detail and say like you need to label your lots like this, and if you blend it in the machine, out of the machine, like is it more just like almost a checklist to say like you need to have this operating procedure? I'm not going to tell you how to do it, but you need to at least document it.
Yeah. So first of all, there is a common process. There are common process segments around AM process category in use. Mm-hmm. So you have pre-processes, you have post-processes, and those are for each technology same schemes. There are same schemes, and those schemes we defined in the standards, and those can be or need to be quality assured if operated by human. If the technology has some monitoring solution, of course, we use that. But of course, we can't cover each application and AM processes category specifics. So this is a downside if you just rely on one standard. That's why I'm just starting a next standard. But let me finish the first one. So we have these process categories of pre-processes, which starts with, of course, CAD, CAM, build process, then build process finalization steps, which still belong to an AM process category, like cooling down, the SLS prints. This is actually in the finalization step of build process. And then there's post-process. Post-process is standardizedly just part-specific steps, not relying on AM build processes specific finalization steps. This is standardized yet. So we make a here clear separation. That's important because we can now put in charge machine manufacturer who gives a system to the market with the claim it's reproducible, including this in-house made build process, post-process steps, so cooling down, etc., etc. Binder jetting, huge topic, because you have much more steps behind the build cycle. And everything which is below where the human interaction is at least mentioned in the standard. So, and there's a shell in front of each action. So it shall be documented that this task is done with these and these parameters. So you kind of force the user of the standard to document his processes that they are measurable and traceable, because then you can measure the human interaction with the technology. For example, sieving of powders, sieving of powders or recycling of powders. So there's a sieving step, then there is a force to control the sieve on a regular basis and to define the regular basis. There's a shell in front of recycling of the materials to measure it and write down the amount of new powder which is used in the old powder or used powder. So this implementer of the standard needs to have it. If you say you implement the 52920, you have it because it is audited by the third, or can be audited by a third party, and yeah, it's there, and it's not technology specific. It's not AM process specific. These are just, yes, if you use powder bed fusion, there's powder, of course, but if you use other technologies, there's either filament or resins or fluids or other, let's say, media, which as well needs to be traced before putting them into the machine, having them in a storage condition monitoring, and these are all influencing factors on the final part quality. So we just put this chunk, which is controllable by human, into a standard.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's super important. I mean, that's one of the reasons we created our software tool called Trace, because of that piece that allows you, like, there's so many different steps of the process: post-processing, pre-processing, inspection, right? Like the amount of data, variability, human interaction that come into play makes communication really important throughout that entire process, and understanding the why. Why are we measuring this, or why are we moderating this? Why are we documenting this? Is challenging because there's just so many steps of the process, and you have different people that are coming in at different times, whether it's a quality person or a materials person, a technician, and quality control, and all of that. It kind of wraps into one operation, and it's a lot of work. I mean, it's to get all of that certified and organized and documented.
Yeah, but understanding the why, understanding the why, it's all about the next standard, which I'm just starting, because we recognize, okay, with the ISO 52920, the level of let's say technical deepness, it's not given, because you have this AM process specific, we have part specifics. So that's why I just starting a new standard, which helps to understand what are the risks of the AM process category: powder bed fusion, binder jetting, direct energy deposition, material extrusion process categories have different risks. And those risks very transparently displayed in the standard will help to identify the why for the tracing. Because if we produce a part for a human body, which has a highest degree of criticality, of course, because it's implanted in a human body, so there's high risk, the future medical company will use the standard to identify the potential risks in the technology with the use for the implant. And then they can identify, okay, here is a risk if I use powder bed fusion powders, because the reproducibility of the recycling process is in danger. So there's a possibility to implement and cause a kind of a measure on the risk to assure that this doesn't affect the part quality. Today, this is a huge kind of Pandora box, which is not defined. Tomorrow, we just started to define the risk mapping for AM process categories, which will help to transparently implement the technology and put a measure on it. And it helps to unite kind of the FDA, so the notified bodies, or TÜV in Germany, to understand what I need to audit and take care of if somebody uses powder bed fusion or other process category. And it helps the user to be sure that he installs the right measures to print reproducible and safe.
Sure. And I was talking to Ryan Kircher from RMS. I don't know if you crossed paths with him. He's very focused on the medical space. And we were talking about how the actual printing of the part, like, that's such a small time frame in the history of the part, like from the design to the materials, the printing process, and then all the post-processing steps. From a time perspective, it's almost one of the shorter time frames that can be very well controlled in an EOS system for the most part, like, the machine settings. But everything that happens after is machining and hipping and testing. Like there's so much after the fact that could be add variability into this. So the standardization process, I think, is very important for the industry.
Yeah, you're right. So the time-wise, the human has more time around the building process to make more mistakes. Yes, that's why we need to standardize it. On the other hand, if you look at the major difference of AEM technologies to other compatible manufacturing technologies, the risk of our process is quite high, because forming material property on a voxel basis is not in the other technologies. Is kind of there's either casting, yes, you still kind of form a material property which is undefined in a huge casting metal frame, but it's over 1,000 years old. Yeah? In Egypt there was casting already. Yeah. So these are over 2,000 years old, and so it's accepted, and there are so many books and education about it. In additive, we still kind of considered as an innovation in terms of in the manufacturing world. That's why we need to do everything what helps us faster to become on the eye level with the existing technologies like casting, milling, and drilling. And the build process security and reproducibility is one of the major milestones. So that's why I highly encourage all build process monitoring solutions. Build process monitoring will help a lot with their data to make our process very transparent and traceable and secure. Yeah? That it can faster compete with existing conventional technologies.
So kind of as we get towards the back end of the conversation, like what's it like being an entrepreneur now? So starting your own company, your own firm. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I think there's a huge lack of understanding how business design works in the industry, because we are very techie driven. So a lot of, let's say, technological great minds, engineers developing the next step. What else can I design? What kind of design features, design for AM, etc., etc. But bringing it to the business design level means we kind of take the AM potentials of design as well as feature-wise into an entire context with a business model, and this is still not cultivated in the industry, and that's why I started AM Entrepreneur, because I believe that if we don't, let's say the manufacturing world or the industry world can't invest so much time to identify their potential with additive by themselves, because it's way too complex. I am since 12 years there and still discover new things, right? So because there's kind of endless potential and new things and new technologies is coming up and new case studies. So how a company which is a newbie can take an advantage? Only for defined AM entrepreneurship. So I think that I believe on that, and that's why I'm developing a methodology for it. I wrote my master thesis about it. So how to quantify additive manufacturing value used in business models. So we can measure it. If you can measure AM value in a business model, you can convince investors to put money into your business case. And this is something what I invented, how to put a measure on an AM value in a business model. And I'm conducting that.
Is that putting value on, say, a part business case? Like say, hey, if we lightweight this part, it'll give this amount of value, or is it broader than that, where it's say like Okay. So
it's about parts, but it's as of course as well about supply chains.
okay.
It's about the degree of innovation. It's about sustainability aspects. It's about quality enhancements and the integration of all of that in one manner. So I developed 49 AM value factors, which can be kind of matched with every part requirements, and then we can measure the amount of the degree of AM value in the business case or enhance it through these factors. And with that, the business case design is much more, let's say, broader, because you don't focus just on lightweighting or just on demand 3D printing. There's kind of, you integrate everything what AM can offer and design and a coherent business case.
Nice. And so where are you starting with specific industries or kind of clients? I remember when I started my company, it was like anyone who says yes is my first client. It doesn't matter what industry. So what's been your approach?
Yeah. So for now, I am focused more on entrepreneurship. So as companies are forced to innovate with additive, or not forced, but this is one chance to innovate, especially in the manufacturing world, to come up with new products, new features, sustainable solutions for spare parts, etc. So here is for sure a focus for now, because entrepreneurs need to convince internal stakeholders as well to receive innovation money. And this is where I help with to really have a bulletproof business case using AM potentials, realistically driven. So because I'm coming from the quality sector, so I can kind of consult as well what is realistically doable with design features and part properties, and bringing that together in the business case with AM entrepreneurship mindset. I hope that it helps to scale faster the AM potentials in great business models.
Awesome. That's awesome. I'm excited to see where you take that. And so as we kind of wrap up here, I always like to ask kind of the guests, the one final question is, you've been in the industry for 12 years now. You've seen a lot. You've seen facilities on different continents. You've made standards. You've started your own business. What advice might you give to someone who may be just starting their career in this space, based on your experience?
I think develop your own way, and a positive mindset there, because the technology offers so much value to the humanity. Just find what you are and stay with that. So either you are an entrepreneur which would like to combine everything, which is I think the holy grail and challenging, but you can get there if you start with technological understanding. So either you are an application engineer. This was my path. I started with application engineering, where you get hands-on into the process and you commit bottom up to the potentials of AM. So this is what I really liked or what I did, because then you know what you're talking about, because you did it with your hands. So hands-on, and always try to find the next step. I experience going for the next step is easier if it's a challenging project. So not the easy hurdle, because if you define for your next step some challenging projects, the competitive space is a bit less because nobody wants to touch it. But the chance to succeed and the potential in this challenging project is often very high, and you learn a lot in a minimal time frame. So and that's it. So if you can learn a lot in a minimal time frame, if you go for the challenging projects, then you win. Your personality wins, and you will become new idea and then you create entrepreneurship.
Awesome. Well, wish you the best of luck. Hopefully I'll cross paths with you and sometime this year and some of the conferences coming up, and we'll speak to you then, and hopefully we can jump on up another podcast in a few months and get the updates.
Thank you so much. Yeah, look forward to meet you soon again.
Sounds good.